This episode is brought to you by Opill, the first over-the-counter daily birth control pill available in the U.S. Opill is FDA approved, full prescription strength and estrogen-free. Plus, there's no prescription needed. Finally, the days of needing a prescription for birth control are over. Opill is available online and at most major retailers. Take control of your health and reproductive journey with Opill. Birth control in your control. Use code BIRTHCONTROL for 25% off your first month of Opill at opill.com.
Welcome back to the Philosophemes podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Frank Scalambrino. I'm proud to be part of the Evergreen Podcast Network. Thank you for being here. Here are the 5 reasons why the trolley problem is what some have called junk philosophy. And we'll discuss each one of them briefly, but I thought it would be good to just go ahead and state the reasons or the criticisms of the trolley problem up front. Number 1, the trolley problem presupposes the quantification of moral reality, as if morality were really a kind of economics, which it is not. Number 2, the trolley problem presupposes consequentialist ethics, and it need not. Number 3, the trolley problem represents a silly attempt to fabricate circumstances to make a utility-based understanding of justice seem right. Number 4, the trolley problem only considers duty from a universal point of view, not an individual point of view. And lastly, number 5, the trolley problem disregards virtue. All right, so let's start off with a quick dad joke. A job candidate approaches the chair of a philosophy department that is currently looking to hire a new professor. During the course of their conversation, the job candidate asks the chair of the philosophy department, "What kind of philosopher are you?" To which the philosophy department chair says, "I'm a materialist." Later, the job candidate asks the chair, "So, are you going to hire me?" And the chair says, "I'm not allowed to hire you." The job candidate then says, "How about if I leave campus and come back? And while I'm gone, I'll change clothes. Would you be allowed to hire me then?" Looking somewhat puzzled, the chair of the philosophy department says, "How would that make any difference?" To which the job applicant responded, "I thought you said you were a materialist." The clinic where I began my work answering suicide hotline calls right after undergrad had an employee gift exchange. And by then it was well known that Frank was the guy who was interested in philosophy. So people would just approach me and ask me philosophy questions. The person who drew my name in the gift exchange purchased a book for me titled "What If?" And everyone thought it was the perfect gift. The assumption evidently being that philosophy deals in what ifs. It also seems to be the case that many people on social media who refer to themselves as philosophers think that philosophy deals in what ifs. Well, I'm here to tell you that real philosophy doesn't deal in what ifs. In fact, technically, not even amateur philosophy deals in what ifs. We could say that junk philosophy deals in what ifs, or the technical term is analytic philosophy. What does that mean? The most popular philosophy in the United States is known as analytic philosophy, and analytic philosophy is interested in what they call possible worlds. So in addition to all their political activism, they spend considerable amounts of time and resources dealing in what ifs. One of the what-ifs that really became popular in the effort to promote Philippa Foot and Judith Jarvis Thompson is the trolley problem. Here's a pro tip. If you're debating with someone and they try to get you to talk about trolleys, don't do it. Don't change the topic. Unless, of course, it's all just for entertainment purposes. Then what if they also offer you summers off, or what if they have a flying car? So what actually is the trolley problem? Not surprisingly, there are many variations of the trolley problem. What if the trolley were? What if the people were? What if you were? And so on. But there are two primary versions most people take into consideration. Trigger warning here. They are technically referred to as the basic version and the obese person version. The basic version seeks to impose a binary on you by saying that you only have two choices. Or more technically put, what if you only have two choices? So, what if there is a trolley coming down the tracks and there are 4 or 5 people on the tracks ahead of the trolley? Your two choices are flip a switch or don't flip a switch. If you flip the switch, then it deviates and kills one person instead of 4 or 5. Notice how the analytic philosophers love quantification. It's just one of their highly restricted, fixated interests that are abnormal in intensity or focus. And despite their insistence on sameness, there is another version of the trolley problem they consider. The second variation of the trolley problem involves throwing an innocent person in front of the trolley to get it to stop before it hits the 4 or 5 people tied to the track. So, as we will see in just a moment, the first 3 of the 5 reasons that the trolley problem is junk philosophy are already noticeable. Here is a quick story to illustrate what I mean. I was present at a barbecue once, where a grown man and a child were having a debate regarding which mythical creature would win in a fight. And one of the mythical creatures was a cross between a crocodile and a spider, and the other creature was a cross between a shark and a bear. Every time one of them would get the upper hand in the debate, the other one would attempt to impose some new constraint on the abilities of one of the mythical creatures. My crocodile would bite your bear. No, 'cause my bear could outswim your crocodile. Well, not if I spun a web and caught you in it. No, sir, my bear's claws would tear through your web, and on and on and on. At the time, I found myself wondering what it might be like to be on Thorazine. The point just being that the crocodile spider and the bear shark debate might as well be the trolley problem. I'll give you a more everyday relevant example. Someone recently used the trolley problem in the attempt to persuade people to change their climate-related current behaviors for the sake of the damage that climate change will cause in the future. This is like saying, instead of keeping the one person alive on the track now, let's kill them so that the 5 people on the track in the future will survive. Yet, notice how the climate change deniers respond. They say, you don't know if the trolley is going to hit those 5 people or not. To which the climate change proponent says, no sir, because bear sharks can't jump that high. In other words, no, the trolley really is going to run those 5 people over. To which the other side says, no it's not. So you can see it's not really worth paying over $100,000 to get a degree in analytic what-if philosophy. In terms of our first 3 reasons then, notice the trolley problem presupposes the quantification of moral reality. Somehow the 1 versus the 5 is supposed to mean something to us. But of course, it only does if you are a utilitarian. Utilitarians take what Nietzsche called a camel view of the world and seek to bring about the greatest good for the greatest number. But just like the bear-shark debate, that moral calculus is easily corrupted. At the same time, the second reason is also noticeable. Namely, the trolley problem presupposes consequentialist ethics. In other words, we are supposed to determine the value of action or inaction based on the consequences of those actions. However, in real-life situations, moral judgment is not so simply reducible to consequences and their obvious causes. This is why the third reason comes into the critique of the trolley problem. The trolley problem is a silly, reductionistic, question-begging, red herring portrayal of morality. Finally, let's consider the last two criticisms of the trolley problem. Recall that there is a hierarchy involved when it comes to how traditional philosophy understands goodness. At the bottom of the hierarchy is utility. Next up is duty, and above duty is virtue. So if you consider that hierarchy, then you can immediately see that the trolley problem dwells in the lowest moral category for judging goodness. On the one hand, the trolley problem is sometimes used to provoke what-if thinking in regard to duty. We've heard talk about positive and negative duties, for example, the duty to save and the duty to not cause harm, respectively. However, notice these are universal characterizations of duty. In other words, duty understood from the standpoint of utility. Notice how quickly the trolley problem is no longer a problem when we add in individual duty. For instance, do you flip the switch to kill your child if it means saving 4 or 5 strangers? So that's the fourth criticism of the trolley problem. The fifth criticism is that there isn't even room in the scenario of the trolley problem to consider virtue. It doesn't make sense to ask if the switch flipper is a virtuous switch flipper. The trolley problem is too narrowly conceived along the same what-if lines as when Bobby claims that the bear shark can't escape a crocodile spider's web. Moreover, many people who approach the trolley problem believe that the switch flipper is easily persuaded by profit and money. Virtue simply doesn't factor into the trolley problem characterization of the switch flipper. It's like the time that the American Philosophical Association told its members that it was going to use their membership dues to promote their competition. Not because their competition was better than them at philosophy, but because, what if we hire your competition instead? Then the world will be a better place. Don't you want the world to be a better place? Or it's like that meme showing the PowerPoint slide in a university philosophy course explaining why toothbrushes are sexist, and the student asking, why am I paying $7,000 to learn this? Liberal arts professors continue to lose their jobs, and universities remove these what-if departments because students don't want to pay to learn about the sexual prejudices of toothbrushes. And no doubt, these professors making 6 figures teaching a couple hours a week with summers off are upset about it. But imagine if you were a real philosopher and these schools weren't allowed to hire you. Clearly, these schools have flipped the switch and decided to let real scholars and real scholarship die for the sake of the 4 or 5 more people who think, what if we learn about the sexual prejudices of toothbrushes? Maybe it'll make the world better. Clearly, these schools have flipped the switch. The problem is, and this is why the trolley problem is simply too narrow, no one expected the 4 or 5 people saved to get up off the tracks and kill the switch flipper. And now, as the 4 or 5 people kill the switch flipper yells out for the real scholars to save them. But they can't, because the switch flipper has already killed them.